All right, guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another podcast episode. We got a huge show to cover today. Lots of action from the weekend to cover. Inoue versus Nakatani, David Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez, Sam Eglinton and Connor Walker. We're also going to preview this weekend's action, which is Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wardley, and that mammoth card happening from Queensbury Promotions. We also got a fight midweek that we're going to talk about, Oscar Diaz versus Nikita Tszyu. We got breaking news, and we got a new segment this week, which is the moments of the week. What's caught my eye this week in the world of boxing? And you know what? In combat sports, because there's some other articles that we're going to talk about today. But if you all could first head down the bottom there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and please do leave all your thoughts in the comments below. All right, let's start in Tokyo, Japan. Takuma Inoue beats Kazuta Ioka by unanimous decision, 118 to 108, 119 to 107, 120 to 106. Inoue dropping him once in round 2 and once in round 3. And therein lies the problem that I have with Inoue. You saw he's got all the skills necessary. He's got a great skill set. His jab is great. He's very reminiscent of his brother in a lot of ways. But the problem Inoue has, it's been a problem over the course of his career. And yes, I know he won by unanimous decision, a very wide margin, so it's not actually a problem. But for me, it sort of is, because there's higher things that Takuma Inoue wants to do than just beat Kazuta Ioka. And that's the power thing. 22 wins, 5 knockouts. He drops his opponent twice within the first 3 rounds, and he's unable to close the show. And that, for me, shows me the problem with Takuma Inoue. He's going to struggle in big fights because he doesn't have that power to gain respect from other fighters. So fighters are just going to keep walking into him. Yes, he's got a very good skill set. Yes, he's good at movement. Yes, he's got a good jab. He's able to create angles and hit with precision. But sometimes you just need that little bit of power. That's what separates the good fighters from the great fighters. And unfortunately for Takuma Inoue, yes, he's very reminiscent of his brother and his skill set. They're both under the tutelage of his father, who's a great coach, by the way. I don't think he gets enough recognition for the job he's doing. But the problem for Takuma is that power. Yoshiki Takai beats Kang Wang by majority decision, 76-76, 77-75, 77-75. Yoshiki Takai, very lucky to escape this fight with a win. I think I say that, he definitely deserved to win. I don't think he deserved to lose it. But the way in which he fought that fight, the amount of punishment he took, the amount of punches he took, needs to be looked at, because you can't expect to go in every single fight having that poor a defense. You can't expect to go into every single fight and try and win it taking that many punches, because some of these guys in this new division for Yoshiki Takai hit a lot harder than your last division, and I don't think he's going to be able to sustain 2 or 3 fights taking that type of punishment. Naoya Inoue beats Junto Nakatani by unanimous decision, 116 to 112, 115 to 113, 116 to 112. Great performance by Inoue. Inoue did everything he needed to do on fight night. I saw a few loose comments around about the fight not being what everybody wanted it to be. Some people weren't exactly thrilled by it. I think that's probably reminiscent of the first 6 rounds for me. I enjoyed it fine. I thought it was a very good fight. I think it was that on the edge of your seat, just waiting for it to finally ignite. Was exciting for those 5-6 first rounds. We knew that these guys were going to be cautious. We knew that one punch can change the whole entire dynamic of this fight. I think if they rematched it, we'd see more of what we saw in the second half over the course of the fight. But for me, I enjoyed it fine. I thought the second half of the fight definitely delivered. And realistically, that's what everybody remembers. Naoya Inoue did enough to win that fight. I rewatched it. The fact of the matter is, Junto Nakatani can't expect to win this fight with such a slow start. You can't let 5 rounds go by cautiously, not really risking anything, and then look at the second half of the fight and expect you're going to win it, especially when you're up against Naoya Inoue. If you're up against a lesser fighter, you can say, all right, I'll let the first 3 or 4 rounds go. I know I'm going to just dominate him in the second half and win it. The problem is Naoya Inoue was far too good, and although Junto Nakatani won 3 rounds in a row, the fact is Inoue showed his experience, his professionalism, and clutched the last 2 rounds. Yes, there is talk about Nakatani's eye. Did that play a factor in the fact that Junto Nakatani didn't look himself following that 10th round and that eye cut? Naoya Inoue grew back into the fight. Did that play a role? For me, it could have, but I don't think it was the be or end all. I don't think that the eye cut to Nakatani was the reason that Naoya Inoue won the last 2 rounds. I don't think it was the switch of dynamic. I think Junto Nakatani was far enough on the front foot, was getting success, but Naoya Inoue once again restarted, reset himself, recalculated, won the last 2 rounds, did enough, and clutched the fight. If he didn't get that cut, would it have been a different fight? For me, I don't think it will. I think Naoya Inoue what he did in the last 2 rounds is just who Inoue is. We've seen him plenty of times when his opponents get going, when his opponents find success, 1 or 2 rounds later, he works it out, he figures out what they're doing, resets himself, and fights a different fight. We saw it against Raymond Cardenas. If you watch those first few rounds, up until when he gets knocked down, he kept getting lured into the same trap, gets hit, realizes it's not working, resets. Cardenas gets no more luck for the rest of the fight, and Inoue runs away with it. And I think that's what we sort of saw. I think Inoue, because the fact is, Inoue didn't have to calculate anything for the first 5 or 6 rounds. It wasn't until Nakatani won those few rounds in a row that Inoue was actually met with something that he had to change himself up for. So that's what I think happened there. Yes, the cut might have made a role. Yes, Junto Nakatani will probably claim that it played a role, but for me, Naoya Inoue just showed his class and showed how good he was. For Junto Nakatani, look, it's a minor setback in an already great career for him, and I'm sure he's just going to grow leaps and bounds for it. Like I said, I would love to see a rematch between these two. Do I think the result changes? Probably not, because I think Inoue is that good, but it's still a great fight to watch again. All right, let's make our way up to Wolverhampton. Conor Walker versus Sam Eglinton. Shannon Ryan beating Nicola Hopewell in a round 2 TKO. The towel was thrown in following Hopewell being dropped by a big right hand from Shannon Ryan, an absolute rifle. You'd probably watch that fight and think Shannon Ryan has a lot more KOs in her resume than she does, but a good win for Shannon Ryan. She was all over her. All right, she was all over for the first 2 minutes. She makes it about a minute into the second round, and Shannon Ryan was just dominant. Every single big right hand that she threw pretty much got through. Poor defense from Hopewell and a good win for Shannon Ryan. 19-year-old Harley Burrows wins his professional debut, beating Lewis Howes by points 40-35. 4-round contest. Howes was dropped in the second round from a big left hook to the body, but Harley Burrows unable to find the finish. TMA Ayton, now 6 wins, 5 knockouts. She stopped Stevie Levy in the 4th round. A great victory for her. The towel was thrown in. Stevie Levy didn't actually get dropped at any point in that fight, but she was eating some massive punches from TMA Ayton. She is 19 years of age. She made her debut last year. Was her debut last year or was it late 2024? Either way, she's rocketed up to 6 victories and 5 knockouts. I did hear a few excuses for why she didn't get a knockout in her last fight. That one, the one fight that she hasn't got a knockout in. But for me, TMA Ayton doesn't need to make excuses. She just needs to learn and grow from her fights, and she is a problem. 6 wins, 5 knockouts, 19 years of age. She hasn't been on the professional circuit very long, and I don't think it's going to be very long now before we start seeing her in a title fight, because she's an exciting fighter. She's got a good fan base. She's got a good personality. People want to go out and watch her. She's growing leaps and bounds, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if she's fighting for a world title late this year or early next year. I think that's how quickly they're going to rush her through, because the fact is, she's got so much speed and so much power, as well as her skill set. She's outmatching people that have been doing this a lot longer than her. Bilal Fawaz beats Ryan Kelly via retirement in the 9th. Fawaz, 38 years of age, bursted onto the scene with those 2 wins over Junaid Boston, gets that good win over Ishmael Diaz, the best win of his career, and now steps up and beats Ryan Kelly, who's a very experienced fighter. Fawaz, British and Commonwealth super welterweight titles. He had his opponent hurt multiple times in that fight. From about the 4th round, Ryan Kelly didn't look himself. Fawaz was growing and growing. I guess the one thing you could say was, should Fawaz have closed that show out a little bit earlier? I thought he had his opponent hurt multiple times, and instead of maybe running in there and really just loading on the pressure, there was a bit of showmanship. There was a little bit of showboating. Is that a problem? Yes and no. People are going to make it a problem because some people don't like that type of character. We see it with Ben Whittaker. They don't like the showmanship. The one thing I will say for Bilal Fawaz is he should look at Ben Whittaker and the way that the past 12 months Ben Whittaker's changed. Ben Whittaker is still that showman. Ben Whittaker is still that entertainer. But all of a sudden he's flipped a switch. He's ignited and he's not wasting time anymore. He's going in there. His opponent's hurt. It's done. It's night over. And for Bilal Fawaz, for me, I'm always more impressed if you can go out there and put the guy on the canvas than I am that you're hurting him and then you're dancing around him. All right, it's fun, brings the crowd in and all sorts. But guess what? If you really want to capture those headlines, you put this guy on his ass. You put this guy unconscious on the floor, and guess what? That's where the showmanship for me really should lie. But Bilal Fawaz, great story for him. Another big win in his career. He's got some titles. I don't know how long it is till he gets a shot at higher honors at super welterweight. I think if he can step up and take somebody on at European level, that's the next step for him. Name, I can't give you one, but for Bilal Fawaz, he's now becoming a good piece of this Matchroom stable, and Eddie Hearn is, he's invested some time in him, and guess what? Bilal Fawaz is really coming to the forefront at a late age, 38 years of age, and now he's really starting to make his run at prime time. Some people, his career are over at 38 years of age. Conor Walker stopped Sam Eggington in the 10th round. A great victory for Conor Walker. You know what? The fight was unbelievable. It was a very, very entertaining fight. Back and forth action. Sam Eggington hit him with everything he possibly could. He was dominant for the first 5 rounds. And I thought Conor Walker, the smaller fight, quite significantly looked smaller in that fight. But the smaller fighter was eating massive punches for the first 4 or 5 rounds. But somehow just kept eating him up and kept walking forward and kept walking forward and kept walking forward till eventually Sam Eggington started to tire and Conor Walker could go to work, drops him in the 8th round with body shots. Come round 10, starts landing some big punches to the head. A good right hand lands that pretty much stops Sam Eggington completely. One of those standing knockouts where the guy's out of it, but he's still standing up. Conor Walker lands a few more punches till the referee can get in the way and stop the fight. A great victory for Conor Walker. And coming into that 10th round, through 9 rounds, he was behind on scorecards. Conor Walker was not ahead on one of the scorecards. I think one of them had a draw. The other 2 had Sam Eggington ahead. So a great victory for Conor Walker. And like I said, he looked small in that fight, but somehow he was able to eat up all those punches, keep moving forward. And this fight here, and you know what, his last fight were a great showcase of how good Conor Walker is, because I didn't pick Conor Walker to get through Pat McCormack a few months ago in Monaco. So back that win up with another good win here against Sam Eggington. Sam Eggington, a very experienced fighter, a good win for Conor Walker. All right, let's move on to David Benavidez versus Zurdo Ramirez. We're going to start with Tito Sanchez beating Jorge Chavez in the 10th round. A very, very good fight, this one. Tito Sanchez and Jorge Chavez, I mean, they went to war for this whole entire fight. And coming into that 10th and final round, Jorge Chavez was only 1 point, I believe, behind Tito Sanchez. Or they might have even been level on scorecards. I think they had 2 scorecards in favor of Tito Sanchez and 1 in favor of Jorge Chavez. It was an almighty fight. And Tito Sanchez finds that punch, finds that finish, and gets the win and opens the card in a great way. If we just talk about that fight, if we talk about the whole entire card, I mean, we were expecting a night to celebrate boxing and Mexican boxing. That fight encapsulates what Mexican boxing is, and the whole entire card did as well. Every single fight delivered, and it was a great opening act. Oscar Duarte versus Angel Fierro. Fierro, 3 pounds overweight, fined $40K before the fight. Duarte hits Fierro and drops him after the bell on the 4th round. It doesn't count as a knockdown, but definitely hurt Fierro. Fierro then hurt Duarte in the 6th round. A good right hand on top of the head of Duarte. The final scorecards were 115-113 Duarte, 116-112 Fierro, 116-112 to Duarte. Majority decision victory to Duarte. Duarte probably owned the first half of the fight. Fierro definitely owned the second half of the fight. For me, the best result would have been a draw. I don't think Angel Fierro did poorly enough to lose 116-112. I also don't think he did well enough to beat Duarte 116-112. I think that fight was most definitely a draw. 115-113 to Duarte, you can probably back. Like, I didn't score it live, but Duarte definitely owned the opening few rounds. So, yeah, it was a great contest. But Oscar Duarte, I mean, a few months ago, he should have been fighting Richards and Hitchens for a world title. And that night, he was very lucky to get through Angel Fierro without losing. For Oscar Duarte, I mean, he gets through it, and I feel bad for him because realistically, he should be in a title fight next. He's just not going to get it, and he's going to have to probably take another dangerous fight to get the opportunity at a title fight. And if you were to pick somebody that he's probably likely to get matched with for a title eliminator or something, it'll probably end up being Keyshawn Davis. So unfortunately for Oscar Duarte, that dream of having a shot at a world title again probably isn't going to happen, but he's very lucky on this night to get through Angel Fierro. Another excellent fight, back and forth action. Angel Fierro came on very strong in the later parts of that fight. Did that 3 pounds play that role? It very well could have. Oscar Duarte would have had to kill himself to make that weight. Angel Fierro says, I'll just cop the 40K loss, and I'm going to come in 3 pounds overweight. That plays a massive boost in a fighter's engine, and I think that did play a role in the second half of that fight. Armando Resendez versus Jaime Munguia. This fight here, plenty of people before the fight were telling me that Resendez was going to win it. I said Jaime Munguia was going to win it, and I was right, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close, and Jaime Munguia performed probably the best of his career. I mean, it's been, 8 years since he held a world title. It's been a very, very long time since that. I think he was 21 when he held that world title. He's now 28 or 29. But this was the performance of a lifetime for Jaime Munguia, a massive card, a massive stage, and he delivered. He becomes the world champion. He destroys Resendez. The combination work from Jaime Munguia and the power punching from him, couple that all up with a very strong jab. And for Jaime Munguia, he spent most of that fight on the back foot, even though Armando Resendez was barely doing anything. But Jaime Munguia was more than happy to just sit on the back foot, sit even close to the ropes, and just punch off the back foot. And it was working for him. He was inviting the pressure from Resendez and counterpunching. If you say anything about Armando Resendez, I mean, you're on the front foot. He seemed to walk down Jaime Munguia, but wasn't throwing any punches. So it was almost easy for Jaime Munguia to fight off that back foot. Lots of question marks over that performance by Armando Resendez. Definitely not his best night at all. It makes that win over Caleb Plant, or it makes that Caleb Plant performance against Resendez look even worse. I mean, what the fuck was Caleb Plant doing on that night? If that's the type of Armando Resendez where you just saw against Jaime Munguia. I know Resendez fought very well against Caleb Plant, especially in the second half of that fight, but I expected to see that against Jaime Munguia. Resendez just never came alive against Jaime Munguia. I don't want to take anything against Jaime Munguia. I thought it was, like I said, the best performance I've seen of him in his whole entire career. Would have been good to close that show, but a dominant victory the way he did it. More than happy with that. Zurdo Ramirez versus David Benavidez. Far out, David Benavidez. I mean, we know he's a monster. We know how good he is. But the fact that undersized goes up against Zurdo Ramirez, somebody that, dropped once in his career back in 2011. A cruiserweight champion, a big cruiserweighter. Somebody that's taken some of the biggest punches from the best in the division. He ate everything Chris Smith could give him. And there were some clean, massive left hooks that Chris Smith hit him with. And Zurdo Ramirez just wouldn't go down. David Benavidez dropped this guy twice, broke his nose, swole his eye, and made him give up after 6 rounds, becoming the unified champion. That is an unbelievable feat. I've seen plenty of people trying to downplay the win from David Benavidez, saying Zurdo Ramirez isn't really that guy. Look at his resume. Look what he's... Yeah, I don't care. That win by David Benavidez is, for me, David Benavidez's best win. It is an unbelievable... It's not just about the win. If he'd beat Zurdo Ramirez like 115 to 113, 117 to 111, something like that on unanimous decision victory, we would have said very good performance by Benavidez. He's just a younger, fresher, quicker fighter. Good performance, becomes the world champion. The fact that in 6 rounds he drops him twice and does that to him, that was the impressive part for me. And he calls out Canelo Alvarez. Plenty of people want to see that fight. Look, you can want that fight, you cannot want that fight. For me, the difference between wanting the Canelo fight and the Bivol fight, and it's probably the biggest thing for me, is if David Benavidez really wants that legacy at the end of his career, you can go and beat Canelo Alvarez, but for me, at light heavyweight, I expect David Benavidez to beat Canelo Alvarez, whereas I don't actually expect David Benavidez to beat Dimitri Bivol. So if you go and beat Dimitri Bivol, for me, that is much, much better than anything Canelo Alvarez can give you, especially considering Canelo Alvarez is coming off just a handing to from Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford, a welterweighter that moved up to super middleweight. How's the super middleweight going to do against the cruiserweight champion? So for me, I think David Benavidez should set his eyes for Dimitri Bivol. That fight for me has a lot more weight in what your resume and what your legacy is going to be. So David Benavidez versus Dimitri Bivol by a million miles is the fight I want to see. The other one that I'd get behind is a Jai Opetaia fight. I think Jai Opetaia's only got the ring belt, and he's with Zuffa, so there's a lot of fucking complications there. The fact that if Jai wasn't with Zuffa and he still had his IBF belt, I think this fight would be very, very easy to make. I think the fact that Jai is with Zuffa, lots of promoters don't want to work with Zuffa. Jai doesn't really have a lot to offer at the moment because he doesn't have that IBF belt. He's got the ring one, so Turki Al-Sheikh might get his hands on it and try and make that fight. But I think Jai's put himself in a hard place to get that fight. I'd love to see it, don't get me wrong. That one and Dimitri Bivol at the top of my list for Zurdo Ramirez. I think those two fights are great. They're different type of fights, but equally very entertaining fights. If I'm to put one name though at the top, I'm saying Dimitri Bivol versus David Benavidez. That is the fight I want to see. All right, let's try and get through this. Sam Noakes gets back to winning ways, stopping Benito Sanchez Garcia in the second round. Yeah, look, it was a guy that resume was 17 victories, 19 losses, and 4 draws. So if Sam Noakes couldn't beat him, I'd have some serious fucking questions about him. I think this is just a fight to get Sam Noakes back on the winning path. Look, a very, very good fight against Abdullah Mason. One that is very unlucky to lose, but nonetheless did lose that fight. Very entertaining, but Sam Noakes just needs to get a win back on the board, and that's what he did. Yasser Algina goes 16-0, defeating formerly undefeated 15-0 Bradley Townsend by unanimous decision, 116-109, 116-111, 117-108. Algina was dropped in the 10th round. It was a bit of a push sort of punch, fell through the ropes, point deducted. It wasn't much. Algina was much the better fighter on the night. Wasn't a great fight, I'll be honest. That event, to be honest with you, was probably the worst event of the weekend. Every other event had all these barnstorming fights. That one was probably the biggest letdown, but it was also not a very hyped fight. I just watched it because it was part of DAZN's. Algina, 16-0, not many knockouts. He is climbing the global rankings. I think he's only ranked in the WBO and he's probably around 11th or 12th. So still a while to go, but it's probably not far off his name being touted amongst title opportunities. All right, let's get into the breaking news. Turki Al-Sheikh has 2 plans in the workings. The first one is he's planning Naoya Inoue versus Bam Rodriguez for January in 2027 to take place in a massive seating stadium in Japan. That, for me, is the best fight to make. For Inoue, I think that fight there, a rematch against Junto Nakatani, I'd more than happily see, or moving up and taking Shushu Carrington. Those are the 3 fights. Any 3 of those fights, I'll be more than happy to sit down. I think Bam Rodriguez, the fact that he's an undisputed champion, the fact that we can all see how good he is, these 2 are very similar in stature, in size. That's the fight I want to see. If we see it, we're going to have to probably see it soon because I don't know how many fights now Inoue's got left in him at super bantamweight, and I'm not sure when we're going to see Bam Rodriguez move all the way up to featherweight. So definitely see January as that opportunity. Some people are saying that Bam Rodriguez doesn't really deserve that opportunity or he needs a fight at super bantamweight. I can get behind that. I think there will be a lot of question marks coming into that fight. Can he adjust? But he's going to have his fight at bantamweight. We see plenty of fighters go between 1 or 2 divisions and have no problems. Sam Goodman, he fought happily at super bantamweight for his whole entire career, basically, and then moves up to featherweight for a title fight and competes fine against Nick Ball. For me, the small changes don't really matter, especially in these lower divisions. Most of these guys have fought plenty of fights in and out of other divisions. Like, they don't normally see them for more than 3 or 4 fights in one particular division. They're always going back and forth. So for me, I don't see it being a problem. Obviously, you're going to give the advantage to Inoue because he's the natural at that weight, but I don't think it plays that big a role for it not to be made. Yes, the argument is maybe you give Bam Rodriguez Junto Nakatani and the winner of that fight gets either a rematch with Naoya Inoue or Bam Rodriguez gets his shot at Naoya Inoue. I would be more than happy with that as well. The problem I have with that is then you're sitting around longer and longer waiting for that fight against Naoya Inoue, somebody that I still think is really struggling to make weight at super bantam. You don't want to have to get to a point where Inoue says, I can't make super bantamweight. He's now a featherweighter. And once again, that's another spanner in the works, especially if we want Bam Rodriguez taking that fight, because all of a sudden then he's going from, his first fight at bantamweight all the way to a title fight against Inoue at featherweight. That's another big drastic change. So, yeah, I think that's the next fight to be made. Turki Al-Sheikh also plans to sit down with Alexander Usyk to discuss a Ring Magazine heavyweight title fight against Ajit Kabayel later this year in Germany, providing Usyk gets through Rico Verhoeven on May 23rd. I'd love to see Turki Al-Sheikh get his hands and say, this is the next fight. This is the one to be made. I think sanctioning bodies should be saying that as well. Turki Al-Sheikh holds a key in that fight, though. He's the one with the money. He's the one that's going to attract the biggest numbers for this fight. And for me, I think Alexander Usyk is looking at that. He is looking at the money, or else he wouldn't be taking on Rico Verhoeven. No offense to Rico Verhoeven, but in terms of bolstering Usyk's boxing resume, it's not going to happen. Rico Verhoeven's a very, very experienced, good combat athlete, a legendary combat athlete, all right? Undefeated and undisputed for years and years, but it's kickboxing. For me, Ajit Kabayel versus Alexander Usyk is the biggest fight to be made in heavyweight, and this is what I want to see. So hopefully Turki Al-Sheikh can make that fight happen later this year, early next year. I don't give a fuck, but that should be the next fight for Alexander Usyk. Adric Caballel needs to know a date because I wouldn't mind seeing Adric Caballel have another run out before that fight, though. Tim Tszyu versus Errol Spence has been confirmed for July 26th in Australia, which will be July 25th in America. No venue yet decided upon. It's only announcement for the fight. No Limit's very good at making an announcement for a fight, and then about a month out from the fight, we'll announce the venue. If I was to guess where this is landing, I'm going to say Seabus Super Stadium, which is on the Gold Coast in Australia, up in Queensland. That's where I would guess it's going to land. I'd be very surprised if it landed anywhere else. All right, a new segment on the podcast this week. We're going to need a name for it. I don't know what to call it, but it's basically what moments caught my eye this week. And we got a few things. Number one, all action fights. This weekend was one of the best boxing weekends of just pure entertainment. It didn't matter the name. It didn't matter the occasion. It didn't matter the fight. Almost all the fights this weekend on all the fucking cards that we saw were excellent, excellent fights. There was plenty of fights that you could say is worthy of a fight of the year. Another thing that caught my eye this week is a celebration of culture in boxing. I think we saw the best of Japanese boxing, and I think we saw the best of Mexican boxing this weekend. Sometimes, different countries can be overshadowed for what they bring forth to world-level boxing. Lots of the time the attention is on America and the attention is on England, but Japanese boxing and Mexican boxing were on the forefront this year. Massive cards stacked with their talent, and all of them delivered. And, we see plenty of fights that are held in England. We see plenty of fights that are held in America with the top American talent, top English talent, and they're boring, terrible fights. We did not see terrible, boring fights in Japan or Mexico this weekend. Another thing that's caught my attention this weekend, Mike Tyson and Ryan Garcia in the sheds for David Benavidez. Ryan Garcia giving his best impersonation of Michael Jackson. I don't know what these two guys were up to, but I'm sure they had the fucking time of their lives. Yoel Romero wins at 49 years of age. Yes, I know it's not boxing, but if you're a combat sports lover, Yoel Romero at 49. This guy, the fact that he's walking into the octagon at 49 years of age looking like that is unfucking believable. Goes in there, wins his fight in the very first round. A great performance by Yoel Romero. Staying on that combat sports side of things, the UFC was brought to Perth. Cell Kid destroying Dariush in the matter of minutes, and Carlos Prates putting on a world-famous beatdown on Jack Della Maddalena within 3 rounds. I think the third round punch stats was 46 punches to 1 in favor of Carlos Prates. The guy is an absolute animal. The fact that this guy trains smoking packs and packs of cigarettes and drinking alcohol, the guy is an animal. All right, let's have a look ahead at this week's action. Nikita Tszyu taking on Oscar Diaz this Wednesday in Australia. Nikita Tszyu, listen to Nikita Tszyu. 28 years of age, 11 victories, 9 knockouts. But since beating Koen Mizudia in August of 2024, Nikita Tszyu has fought 1 round against Ismaili and 2 completed rounds against Michael Zarafa, meaning 3 rounds of action in 20 months. You can't be having that. I know there's a few different circumstances around that. Nikita Tszyu did have a lot of problems with his hands that he was trying to overcome. And then he was in a car crash at one point. And then he had that fight against Ismaili. Unfortunately, it only went 1 round and Ismaili pulled out. And then he fights Michael Zarafa, which was supposed to be the big fight for Nikita Tszyu to really make his presence known. And Michael Zarafa pulls out after 2 rounds. So there has been some unfortunate circumstances, but I want to see Nikita Tszyu back in action. I don't see this fight against Oscar Diaz going the distance. I think he'll destroy Oscar Diaz. Oscar Diaz, 25 years of age, a good undefeated fighter. That's what they're saying. 16 wins, 6 knockouts. But just look at the guys that he's versed. They are poor domestic level fighters. You can't even find this guy's fights online. I can't even tell you how this guy fights because you can't find footage of him. These are the type of fights that this guy's in. I expect Nikita Tszyu to run through it. Angelo Leo versus Reyes Aleem. This is a 12-round contest for Leo's IBF featherweight title. I expect Angelo Leo to hold on to that world title. I did see Reyes Aleem a few years ago when he took on Sam Goodman. That was up in Queensland as well. Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois. Don't blink. This card is massive. We're going to talk more about Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois later in the week. I'm going to make a preview, talk about that fight in depth. But right now, Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois, just the fight itself is going to be is a great fight. The fact that Fabio Wardley, there's plenty of easier fights that he could have chosen, but he's chose Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, I think, probably being overlooked by a lot of people. I think Daniel Dubois holds a very, very, very good percentage of winning this fight. Fabio Wardley definitely gets the favorite bill. Fabio Wardley's coming off great wins. Daniel Dubois is coming off a devastating loss. So Fabio Wardley naturally will be the favorite to this fight, but don't write off Daniel Dubois at all. Jack Rafferty versus Echo Usman. Echo Usman dropping down to super lightweight for this fight, following that loss to Jack Cattrall. Rafferty coming off a draw with Mark Chamberlain. Liam Cameron versus Bradley Rhea. I expect Rhea to win that fight. David Morrell. I'm glad David Morrell got his fight. I mean, unfortunately, we didn't get to see him against Callum Smith. David Morrell wouldn't have wanted to waste that camp in preparation that he had for Callum Smith. So a few weeks later, he's going to take on Zach Chellier. I expect Morrell to win that fight. Khalil Majid versus Gavin Gwynn. Khalil should win that fight. And this one here, Jalalov is making an appearance against Agron Smaiki. Smaiki, you would have seen him lose to Ajit Kabayel a few years ago when he got destroyed in 3 rounds. Jalalov, 31 years of age, 16 victories as a professional, but this guy holds the key of amateur boxing. I mean, 2 gold medals in amateur boxing. He beat Terra Moana in the Olympics. He beat Fraser Clark in the Olympics. He beat Richard Torres Jr. in the Olympics. He is an unbelievable fighter. And the problem I've always had with Jalalov is he just drops back and forth. He was like, all right, I'll take 2 professional fights, but then I'm going back in the circuit of amateur to get ready for the Olympics. And then, all right, I'm going to drop back, have a few fights. They're fights that nobody's watching. And now I'm going to go back into the Olympics because that's where I'm going, back into amateur. He had like 120 amateur fights. I just want to see him stick to professional boxing. I want to see how far he can go. I want to see what he can deliver on the world stage. He's done it as an amateur, all right? 2 gold medals. That's hard work. Some of these young killers that he was facing is tough work. And now I want to see Jalalov really make a run for it. I expect him to beat Smaiki quite comfortably. It's not a guarantee, but I expect it to be a guarantee. All right, it should be done. It should be done quite good. It should be an entertaining fight, but I want to see Jalalov, 2 or 3 times fighting in England on these big cards. I don't think he's going to take very long to be in a world title fight. When you have that sort of amateur pedigree, you automatically get that free pass to the front of the line. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I hope I've made your commute, your gym session, whatever you're doing whilst listening to this podcast, enjoyable. Please do jump down the bottom there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave all your thoughts about anything we talked about today. If you have any ideas for what you want to see on this podcast going forward, let me know. I do try and make these when there's a lot going on. If there's any new segments you want to talk about, if there's anything different, if you want to see it live, whatever you want to see, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, we're going to need a name for this podcast because I'm making it more frequent. We need a name for the podcast. We need a name for the segment in the middle where we talk about the moments of the week. I'm more than happy for you guys to jump in the comments, jump in the community, and let me know your moments of the week. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm out of here, guys. See ya.